enter. Hello and welcome, or welcome back if this is you joining us for the second time. This is our second interview from the series called Conscious Conversation, which is a series of live conversations that we will have with different names from the Shiatsu community, familiar names, names that you will probably recognize from different areas of your Shiatsu journey. And the purpose of these conversations is, one, to give us some insight on their magical journey, dare I say that, and two, to find different elements from behind the scenes that we don't normally have the opportunity to see on social media or online. These conversations are not staged, they're just recorded. So even though we do like to create a safe space and to find a way to share the things that we're passionate about, it's an organic conversation. So please do feel free to join if you have any questions, if you want to leave any comments along the way or after the recording. Both Elaine and I, which is my wonderful guest for tonight, will make sure that all your questions are answered. Without further ado, allow me to welcome the wonderful Elaine Liechti. Please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Oh, I've done it.
Is right? Yep.
Yes.
Well,
I've rehearsed a little bit in the beginning. Elaine, you've had such a long and wonderful journey of Shiatsu after having read and, of course, meeting you in person. I have opened one of your books. I know it's just one of three. And I am very inspired by your journey. I'm very grateful that I have this opportunity to share the space with you. But I would like to invite you to say hello to everyone and tell us a little bit about yourself.
well, hello everyone. A little bit about myself. Well, I've been around Shiatsu since 1980. That's when I started my Shiatsu journey. And it was one of those things where I bumped into it in kind of two different ways, really. And after I bumped into it and I got into it, then I was just enthralled and have been involved in the society and in teaching, and so on ever since, really. It's become what is my life. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for mentioning that. So if you started in the 80s, we're talking about 4 decades of navigating this wonderful journey. And I find that incredibly impressive because when it comes to the holistic practices in general, not just Shiatsu, and I mentioned this because my background is from the yoga practice, so there are a few similarities with that. It becomes a lifestyle. It's no longer just about the practice or the benefits of the practice. It's about our opportunity to take different elements from the practice and implement them in our day-to-day life. And I can hear that probably this is what Shiatsu has done for you over this wonderful 4 decades. I wonder, let's go back to the basics a little bit and let's see, how did it all start?
Well, I did my degree in modern languages at the University of Aberdeen, and I wanted to be a journalist. And I had interviews with the BBC and with various journalistic organisations, and in fact, I got a traineeship with the international news agency Reuters.
Oh, wow.
In London. As an economics journalist. Now, economics is not my thing. As I sometimes say to my students and my family, I do words, not numbers. Anyway, I started with them and I was probably about to be posted out as a trainee to my first post. And I decided that I really needed to do some martial arts because I'd had a bad experience once in France where somebody jumped out at me a dark night. So I'd been practicing Aikido, which is a martial art which works with ki. And I had an experience one night where I got dumped on the mat and I was unconscious. And my sensei used kidney 1 to bring me round. And so I remember kind of waking up on the floor with this wonderful old man at my feet with his thumb firmly stuffed into the sole of my foot. And afterwards I said to him, "Now, Sensei, what was that?" And he said, "This is Shiatsu." And I said, where do I find out about it? And he said, well, go to the East-West Centre. So I said, oh, fine, okay. And I kind of filed that information. And then later on, when I had dropped out of being a journalistic trainee because at some strange level it didn't fit, longer story, and I got ill. And really getting ill was the kind of prompt that pushed me into shiatsu. And so I was getting these horrific migraines, weekly. So if I wasn't having a migraine, I was running into one or I was recovering from one, and medication didn't help. I'd been to a doctor, pink and yellow pills, la la la. And I started looking around, and I went to see a friend one day and she wasn't in. So I went to the local health food shop, and in the window, there was a little poster that said, do you feel tight or loose? And I thought, well, that's me. Most of the time I'm really tight. And then I go very loose, and I have to do nothing for it. So I went and I got into this series of talks, and it was by people who were following the macrobiotic diet and the macrobiotic philosophy, and they said, you should really try shiatsu. This would be so good because your neck is so stiff. And I said, yeah, fine. Where do I find out about this? And they said, wow, it's the East-West Centre. And I thought, aha, I have heard this before. All roads lead to Rome. So I got myself organized, and I went and I did a weekend, and my first teacher was John Sandifer, who's no longer with us. And it was just like, this is it. I can do this. Now, this was entirely unlike anything I had ever done before in life. I had a very kind of conventional upbringing, school, university, really fantastic job, and then I kind of fell off my perch and was very down and depressed and sick and everything else for a long time. And this was like, oh my God, this really feels like I can do this. And at the end of the first weekend, they didn't teach us any theory at all. They didn't talk about yin or yang or ki, but I knew about ki because of my Aikido teacher. But it was just like, yeah, this just feels right. And then when I had my hands on people, it was just like, oh wow, I feel like I'm talking with my hands here to this person, and it was just amazing. So that was it. Then I said, after the course, well, how do I find out more? And they said, well, come and do Kushi Institute Level 1. So I get organized to do Kushi Institute Level 1, which was an evenings course. And it was like, I think it was 4 evenings a week and then weekends. It was kind of intensive stuff, so that wonderful building, 188 Old Street, that some people may remember. I can see Kim there, he's grinning, he probably remembers that. Well known and beloved by some of us. And so I did a course there, and then another one. And then I started finding out that there were other people. And then that was 1980, then 1981. And then in the autumn of 81 was when the Shiatsu Society had its first meeting, which I wasn't at. This is a myth. I was not at the first meeting. But people like Bill Palmer and Carola Beresford Cook, and who else? Peter Camp, who was the first chairperson, and John something or other, and Merle Goering, who did Jin Shindo, and a wonderful, wonderful lady called Harriet. At the time, she was called Harriet Geddes. She's now Harriet Devlin, and she was the push behind that. And John Sandifer, my teacher, was also there. And they said, well, this is all very fine, apparently, I've got this wonderful idea but, it's going to require some admin. And he said, I've got a very enthusiastic student. I'll ask her. So he asked me, and I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. and there we were. And so Harriet was brilliant at getting people together. So because she wasn't in the macrobiotic community, she was in the kind of other people, so people like Bill and Carola and other people who were practicing, and she brought everybody together. And then she brought Kishi over, for a weekend, which I did, which was totally body blowing. So I had the weekend before I had completed the EST training, which those who are very old will know that it is or it was a kind of a personal development psychological thing. And so I had my little mind blown. And then the following weekend, I went and did a weekend with Kishi and had my body and my ki blown. And it was just like, I am so going to do this. I am so going to do this for my life. This is it. Yeah. So
I'm
that's
so glad that
started.
you mentioned that moment when you realize that this is it. This is going to be it for my life. I hear that it all started with a few challenging moments that have brought you closer to finding different ways to, one, protect yourself a little bit. I hope that's not necessary for anyone, but that was the reality of what happened. And two, to connect with a different type of life force. Like you mentioned, your teacher being there to give you the support and to bring you back into the present moment, if I can put it that way. That was
Yep.
probably something that sparked a curiosity for discovering a little bit more about the holistic world, the energetic world. And I can hear that it happened several times. So it was some sort of a gradual burn. And at some point, few things aligned, and then you ended up with this wonderful path ahead of you that you've so beautifully committed to. I can see that Shiatsu is very special for you. And
Yes.
I wonder if you can tell me, why is it so special?
Well, it combines so many things. So as a modality, there are aspects of massage. So I did a little massage course when I was at Kushi Institute to begin with. It combines kind of healing, spiritual healing, ki healing, which I didn't do at the time, but I did later on. I did full healership training. Um, it combines looking at the world on a much wider, more philosophical level, and that really appealed to me. In my degree at university, I did moral philosophy, but both kind of European philosophy, particularly French, because I read French and Spanish, and so the kind of philosophical aspect really appealed to me, and yin and yang became like my compass, because I was lost. When I came into Shiatsu, I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going. And so when I heard about yin and yang, it's just like, okay, now I can sort out where to go and how to go with that. Yeah. So for me, Shiatsu was bringing in lots of different kind of things that had sparked my interest. I had, for example, I used to do a lot. I was really keen on horse riding as a child. I never had a pony, couldn't afford them. Lived in the middle of the town, la la la. But I could ride. And then when I was a little bit into my Shiatsu journey, I got some royalties from the second book, and I decided to do an equine Shiatsu course. And through doing that, and then through riding, I discovered that actually we use ki all the time when we're riding. So people would say to me, well, what do you do for ki development? Do you do qigong? Do you do yoga? And I used to go, well, actually, I go and ride my pony, because and when you're doing martial arts, in Aikido class, the sensei would say, right, so we're going to do katate tori kokyo ho, and so your partner knows what you're doing. When you're riding a horse, it hasn't read the book and it doesn't know what you're doing. So it's very authentic, pure ki. And so, I would know immediately if my ki was off, or I could play with my ki and we could dance together, which was quite nice. Yeah. So bringing and then doing shiatsu on horses was also very interesting, because you can't say to Kelpie, how are you feeling today, dear? It's just like sometimes they'll wave a sore foot at you, but usually it's just like so you have to do all of these energetic things like body scanning that we teach our students later on. Yeah. So for me, Shiatsu was bringing together all sorts of different things, and I I remember having a discussion with Carola one day about this, and she said, "Oh, it's as if everything is becoming the same flavor." And I said, "Well, not quite, but it's just like everything has the same resonance. So whether I'm giving a treatment, whether I'm teaching, whether I'm cooking, whether I'm driving the car or riding the pony or going for a walk or, dealing with a difficult situation, it's all the same stuff. It's all working with ki. It's all playing with ki. And after a while, you start to be there all the time. So to begin with, we have to say to the students, and think about this wonderful ball of light that's just below your belly button, and just imagine it getting bigger and smaller as you breathe in and out, and la la la. And after a while, you're just there all the time. You're just there all the time. And so in a sense, you don't think about it anymore because it's part of who you are. And that goes back to what you said before, Antonia, about it's a whole lifestyle. So it's just, you can't turn off yin and yang. I can't not think about that because it is. I can't not think about ki. I can't, because that's my experience of life. It's within everything. So, when you're cooking, whether you use the macrobiotic style of food or you use the TCM style of food, beautiful books by Davrick Leggett. Oh, my word, go read those, people. But, whether you use you cook consciously, you cook with ki, you cook, I've got one of these big Japanese cooking knives. You've got to be careful you don't take your fingers off. And it's just, you've got to be in spinal alignment and in hara when you're doing that kind of chopping. Otherwise, you're going to, become non-vegetarian slightly if you've got an extra finger. Yeah. But so the whole lifestyle, everything becomes working with ki.
So it's basically energy in motion, if I'm hearing that right. It's ki in
Absolutely.
motion.
Absolutely.
And it's wonderful that you can relate it to so many aspects of life. Like, yes, it is the practice itself, which I'm sure it can be very beneficial. And
Yes.
a question popped into my mind. I wonder if that's something that you would like to share. How was life before Shiatsu and how was life different after Shiatsu?
Life before Shiatsu.
In terms of alignment with the self, with
with
using
alignment
energy
with
in
self.
motion, yes.
Well, gosh, I was a good little girl. I was brought up in a fairly God-fearing family. You went to church on Sunday at least once and sometimes twice and everything else. And yeah, I remember as a teenager, I used to sing, I used to sing loudly and must have hyperventilated and started fainting in church. So then every time I went into church, I would go a bit dizzy. And started to become less and less in touch with myself and thinking, well, there's something up there, but I don't know what it is. And, I'm not quite in tune with it. And maybe God doesn't want me in his church and this kind of stuff. And it was just all a bit kind of, and then I went to university and, in the 70s, it was all, you were kind of getting into communism and atheism, and I was reading all of this philosophical stuff, and it was just like, oh, okay, that's it. I'm reading Albert Camus. It's all existentialist, and it's nothing to do with. And so I ended up being really lost, really philosophically and spiritually lost. That it didn't. I'd always had a kind of a love for things East Asian. I was very, very lucky. We lived in Edinburgh, and my mother insisted that we went to the Rudolf Steiner school there, where you have, the Rudolf Steiner Waldorf education. It's spiritually based, but it's not pushed on at all. And so in the religion classes, I mean, we had the Dalai Lama to us. We had stories from the Bhagavad Gita, all kinds of, so my mind from that point of view was opened up. And I remember they had a beautiful, wonderful Chinese lady who came, and she spoke to us about China and so on. In fact, in my autograph book, I still have calligraphy that she wrote. And I remember looking at those pictures and thinking, oh, so beautiful. I would love to go. It's so, so there was always that. There was always that kind of little. And then when I was at university, it was just like, Buddhism, well, that sounds interesting. But I never quite got towards that until I got into Shiatsu. And I didn't, some of my very dear colleagues are kind of followers and have taken refuge and so, and I haven't done that, but I follow and I read and so on. I've also done shamanic training in the North American traditions. So sometimes, in fact, I've kind of dropped that into the Shiatsu Society from time to time. Well, we're at this stage in the Native American medicine wheel at the moment, and this is why we're doing this. Yeah. But I guess these days, yes, it's all coming sort of from spirit, but very grounded spirit. Very, I'm not into what I call bells and whistles and purple sparklies, because spirit it's this stuff here, and I remember when I was doing some shamanic work and thinking, oh gosh, everybody wants to have an eagle feather. I must have an eagle feather. And I'd go for walks in the hills around here, and I'd look at the buzzards because there are eagles. I'd go on, give me a feather, for goodness sake, give me a feather, and there was nothing. And then I was going up country one day and I stopped at the service station at Stirling, and I parked my car and I walked over and there was this enormous white feather in the car park. And I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting feather. And then I looked around and there's people here. And I thought, if it's still there when I come back, I'll pick it up. Needless to say, it was still there when I came back and I picked it up. And it is now in my treatment room, But for me, the message there was, you find the spiritual in the mundane. That's my path. I won't go and be a hermit. No, I find the key and the spiritual and the important, the interesting, the fascinating stuff in everyday life. In everyday life. And for me, I mean, I'm so wonderfully blessed that I live out in the country. So this morning, it's just like, oh, can it be a good day today? And I was just about to do my Makaho stretches in my treatment room. It's got a lovely out view. And then up pops this deer and walks past and goes, hey, it's a good day. And it's just like, oh, thank you. Well, I'll take that one as a sign, a key, whatever you believe that to be. Yeah.
I really resonate with everything that you share, and I am so happy that I allow that question to come through so you can share with us that wonderful story. I hear that before Shiatsu, there was a calling towards something in a different manner, and there was a feeling of being lost. But at some point, things have shifted into a grounded spiritual path. And I really like the fact that you mentioned that it is important to ground the spiritual in the mundane, because oftentimes we end up spiritually bypassing the body and bypassing the daily life. And it would be wonderful if we can all go and meditate on the top of the mountain. But at the end of the day, we have to pay our bills. We have to spend time with people we may not enjoy spending our time with. And it's in those moments that we find the actual value of the practices that we do. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that. Throughout your career, and of course, with consideration to the client's confidentiality, I wonder if you have any specific moments that have remained in your heart. I'm sure you can find so many, but probably one or two from the top, if you would like to share with us, that would be amazing.
Yes, lots and few. I really like working on people on their necks. And I can think of 2 or 3 cases where people have come with a neck problem. And in one case, it was a friend of mine from riding who had had a road traffic accident. And she had been suffering from neck pain right up into her head for about 12 years. And we did a treatment. And at the end of it, she looked at me and she said, oh, there's no pain there just now. Yeah, and for me, that was just wonderful to be able to just apply, I hesitate to say bog standard shiatsu techniques, because I have been told in the past I'm not to say that. Yeah, but it's just like just ordinary shiatsu technique, and it had such an effect. Yeah. And so that was wonderful that, somebody who was kind of a friend, and she came for a couple. I mean, it wasn't, the first treatment made an enormous difference. And then, we had 2 or 3 more. But so there's things like that. There's sharing shiatsu with my family. I mean, I remember, pressing points when I was in labor. Yeah, it's difficult to get to spleen 6 over your bump, but large intestine 4 is good. Yeah, using points on to turn a breech baby, because both of mine came into the world bum first. So putting magnets on bladder 67 and walking up the back, and having to take my boots off in the middle of the winter to take the magnets off, because small person who is now large number 1 son was actually getting distressed inside. He was trying so hard to shift himself around, and he couldn't, because I've got non-standard insides. What else? I mean, a client I had last year, farmer's wife, very, very into the physical, and she would just ignore any feeling. And I would say to her, just, this back pain you're getting, and, you're really tight in this glute here. Can you feel this? No, can't feel it. No. And then one day after several treatments, she suddenly went, oh, hang on, I can feel something there. And then the whole of her glute from being went, and she said, oh, that feels amazing. And it was just like, yes. So, because so often in shiatsu, it's about education. Yes, it's us kind of, being the catalyst to say to the key, have a look at that bit there. But often I find in my work with people, I'm talking to people and I'm saying, well, actually, the reason why this bit here is sore is because you've got tension there, or the reason that bit here is feeling lost is because you haven't put enough attention into this empty bit here. And how about doing a little bit of breathing? And so it's kind of bringing people's attention to bits that they had forgotten. And you can do that with words, and you can do that with your hands, and you can do it both ways. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. What about some of the most difficult moments? One from your Shiatsu journey, and I wonder if you've had any difficult moments whilst being part of the Shiatsu Society that you would like to share.
Well, in my Shiatsu journey and my practice, challenges come when clients come with very high expectations. And that is something that I think all practitioners have got to look at and face. It's just like, we advertise ourselves, we say what we do, and sometimes people get this real idea that you're going to be able to, work a miracle for them. I remember a chap coming. So I live in the country, but a couple of the little small towns nearby, there's quite a lot of poverty. And so this chap came, and I can't even remember now. I think it was a back problem he had, but he had been to doctors and physios, and he'd been to everybody. And so it was kind of, he was saying to me, I'm coming to you as a last resort, and I don't have a lot of money, but, here we come with this. And so I did my best, because you always do your best. Mm-hmm. And it didn't make any difference. It didn't make any difference. And so, now I know that, he maybe needed to do some internal work and so on and so forth. But it's very hard where, especially, National Health Service people are used to health care givers delivering goods. And if you're directly taking money from somebody, that's an energetic exchange. They want to feel the difference there. And so that involved me in a lot of soul searching, if you like. the other difficult one in terms of treatments is, and people will have come across this, is working with family again. So I've had some wonderful experiences working with family, but also some really difficult ones. You know, if you have people who've got very entrenched conditions that is hard for them to look at, you know, you can be doing treatments and you're too close to them for them to be able to make that change. So that's been a difficult thing. Yeah, yeah.
How were you able to navigate those things? One, the expectations from the clients, which I'm sure that a lot of the practitioners can relate to, and that's why I think this would be so valuable to share. And
Yeah,
two, to, in a sense, detach from the outcome
yeah,
when you're
yes.
working with a member of the family that is close to you. And of course, we get the chance to see the potential, we understand what could help, but at the end of the day,
Yeah,
everyone is responsible for their own journey. So there's only so much one can do in that
yeah,
process.
absolutely. Well, to deal with the second one first, while I remember it, it's a member of the family, and it's being very, just refer them to somebody else. It's easy
That's very
enough.
good advice. That's very good
Yeah,
advice,
yeah,
actually. Yeah.
refer to somebody else. And even as a practitioner, you know, if you don't resonate with somebody, refer them to somebody else, because you know where your key is may not be where they need to be. And so, yeah, send them to somebody else. Send
Mm.
them to somebody else. And that's that. And then the question before that was, well, yeah, about expectations in clients. So these days, you know, and for the last 10, 15, 20 years, I've been quite careful with people saying, well, now listen, you know, this is not a cure for everything. I will do my best. But sometimes, you know, you need to do your bit as well. And, you know, the oft quoted from Pauline Sasaki, Shiatsu is 50-50. You know, I give my expertise, but you have to do your bit. You know, you have to do your bit. And sometimes when you're lying down, it feels like you're not doing anything, but actually your nervous system is reacting, your circulatory system, lymphatic system, all of these things are happening. And you also need to be willing to be healed, willing to be better, because sometimes that is an enormous thing that sometimes people are attached to. I went through a phase ages ago now, 20 years ago, um, of working with a lot of people with multiple sclerosis. And multiple sclerosis is one of these things that Shiatsu can really help with, really help with. You know, and I've got students who are now colleagues who've worked a lot with people with MS, and I had quite a range of people. And I had one woman who was, she used to talk about the my MS, and it was like a friend, you know, and my MS does this and my MS does that, and it was just like, this is really very interesting. She was very attached to her condition, and maybe that was her way of dealing with it, because of course MS manifests differently in every single person. You know, there's no kind of one technique or one meridian or one element fits all, but she really identified a lot with that. And I remember her. I saw her for many years. Yeah, up until shortly before she died, in fact. Yeah.
That's such valuable information. I'm very grateful that you mentioned that. So whenever it comes to having to deal with a client that we don't resonate with, whether it's coming from our family circle or whether it's coming from a different recommendation, we can always refer them to someone else that they may interact with in a better way. So it's
Absolutely.
important as a holistic practitioner not to be, I'm lacking the word, but protective over clients. Like
Yeah.
they're not necessarily our clients. There are people that we interact with, and like you mentioned earlier, if your chi level is at a specific level that they may benefit from, and vice versa, then things will just align naturally. And with
Yeah.
the first ones, with the expectations, I really appreciate the fact that you've mentioned clarifying those expectations from the beginning. It is a two-way
Very
street.
important.
It is a
Very
two-way
important.
street, and
Yeah.
we have to take responsibility for our journey along the way.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that as a teacher we discuss a lot with our students. But bear in mind, I'm sufficiently ancient and long in the tooth that when I started doing shiatsu, there were no shiatsu schools in this country. There were none. There were none. You know, the first person who created a long systemized course was actually Sonia Morisot. Yeah. Several schools kind of claim to be the first, but actually she was the first, and I have got all the Shiatsu Society newsletters to prove it. Yeah. So expectations and managing expectations and what to do with clients. This is something that we talk about as teachers, and it's really, really important. But I never had any of that. My training was, oh, Shizuko Yamamoto is coming. Listen, dearest husband, I know we're on our honeymoon, but we have to go to London. Truly, we cut short our honeymoon in order to do a weekend with Shizuko Yamamoto. Yeah. And anytime there was anybody kind of big name, when Ohashi came, I was just like, well, we have to go for that. And when Kishi was doing his 5 days in Lamrum in Wales, I said, well, we've got to go for that. And so on. And then when Harriet suggested that we should bring Pauline Sasaki, then she became the kind of the training that we had. But bear in mind, dear people, that was in the days before the internet, before mobile phones and anything else. If I wanted to ask Pauline a question in the year in between her two things, either I had to save up my pennies and then phone her transatlantic, or else I had to write her a letter in that beautiful thin blue airmail paper that nobody ever uses anymore. And, a couple of my treasured possessions are actually little replies from her. Yeah. And then when email was invented, then that became easier. But so, to begin with, a lot of the time you were thrown back on your own resources. You had to work it out for yourself. Yeah. So please, nobody ask me where my Shiatsu diploma is, because I haven't got one. Sorry.
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. And this is why I would really appreciate if you want to share with us how has the Shiatsu community and the Shiatsu lineage transformed in the UK, and how do you feel you have contributed to that? I have some ideas which I'm going to mention along the way, but I would love to hear your perspective from this.
Yeah.
You've been a co-chair of the society for 6 wonderful years, and you've done a tremendous service to the Shiatsu community as a whole, and I'm sure that this can be confirmed by so many people. But tell me, how did you get here? How did you go from noticing that Shiatsu did not even have like an institution that would qualify people to where we are today?
Oh, okay. Looking at the time, long story. No,
I'm conscious of your time as well. So
yeah.
Yes.
So when we started the Shiatsu, so I say we, I wasn't there the first meeting, but I was there the second one. So it was, the whole purpose was to be a communications network between the kind of 6 or 7 or 10 different people who are involved, and then to get those little people who are teaching, to get those communities together. So that was what it was about to begin with, and then the kind of training courses started. And we said, well, we better have a list of practitioners. So we kind of put it, well, are you practicing? Yeah, I'm practicing. Okay, so we'll put you on the list. and then after about a year, we decided that maybe that wasn't such a good idea. We'd better have some kind of a process for doing it properly. And so, just in case anybody doesn't know, so I had been asked if I would do the admin for the society. So I was the secretary for the society's first 10 years. Yeah. So I did the membership. I did the newsletter on my little typewriter, and then when we took it to the photocopy shop, then we had to put all the things into the envelopes. Yeah. put them in the post. So yeah, did all of that, and got involved in the whole assessment process. Yeah, so assessing, so starting with the MRSS, which was, four big letters to begin, a member of the Register of the Shiatsu Society Professional. So we were all involved in that, and then the schools were starting to be involved. So I have a school up in Glasgow, which we started in, I can't remember now, 86 or something like that. And so getting the schools together and all of that. So I kind of saw my role as being like a benevolent spider in the middle of the web, and keeping everybody in contact, but also trying to make sure that Shiatsu was known about. And that people didn't say, "Oh, Shiatsu, yeah, I do that too. I breed those little dogs." It's like, oh, not. Or, oh, ha, yes, martial arts. It's just like, no, not that either. So trying to make Shiatsu more sort of well known. So I was involved for 10 years, and then kind of I stepped back, but I stayed involved in education and the whole process of ratifying schools. And then I was very lucky. I got kind of headhunted into a further education college because they were teaching a course which was called Advanced Massage. And in that, they needed to have some knowledge of acupressure and shiatsu. And so I was asked by the head of the complementary therapies department if I would come and teach that. And so I wormed my way into conventional education. And I taught shiatsu by stealth for 17 years under the guise of advanced massage. So I just taught them a very, very simple shiatsu routine, introduced hundreds of people to, you've got ki, you've got ahara, and everything else. And I was involved in the Equine Shiatsu Association for a while. And then the society was kind of toddling along, and I had been to a course down in Norwich with Cliff and Dinah, and I was coming back. And I got an email to say that the society, the board, had decided that the society was heading for bankruptcy and so on. And so they were going to close, shut the society down. And I managed to get hold of Andy Ansovich, who was the chair of education, while I was in the departure lounge. I couldn't be on the meeting because I was flying back to Glasgow, and he said, "Yeah, we're going to have to close the society. We're just, financially speaking, it's not working." I tell you, I flew back to Glasgow feeling as if somebody had died, because the society had been at my back for my entire shiatsu career. That, and not just the society as an institution, but all of those friends. All of those, people like Kim and Dawn who are here, and Carola and Cliff and Bill and Laura up in Aberdeen, and Carol Dean, all of those people who are close colleagues, and I count them as friends. And it was just like, well, how are we going to, how are we going to communicate with all of these people who've worked so hard? We've worked so hard over the years. And it was like somebody had died. And then the next day, I can't remember if it was Nicola Lee or some other people, and they said, it's got to be a phoenix. We've got to do something. And so me and Annie and Phil put ourselves forward and said, well, we'll see what we can do. And then the previous board, that I called them the A team, because it was Adam and Alice and Andy and Adrian as well, and Elaine West, who was very important. She's not an A, she's an E, but never mind. There we go. And they just worked so hard to try and save things. So Alice and Adam said, well, we'll recalculate. And they came up with this rescue package, which was going with APT. And so that was where we stood in. And so that was where Annie and I came onto the board, and to because we couldn't let it go. All of that work that everybody, I've got over there in my cupboard, I've got my stack of Shiatsu Society journals and newsletters, we used to call it. And the number of people who have been involved in so many ways over the years, loads of people. I was involved in having to destroy some of the old records when we moved from APT, just because we didn't have a physical office anymore. And going through and seeing the enormous contribution that people have made. I mean, Kim, I've seen your name there. I'm saying Kim because I can see him here on my screen. But enormous contribution to people like Kim have made, over the years, and still here. It's just like we're still here. And it's just because Shiatsu has got that thing where you get into it and you want to stay. And I cannot tell you, I can't say the number of people, but quite a few students that I have trained who started in college doing aromatherapy, reflexology, massage, advanced massage, shit, come and do Shiatsu, and then did 3 years of Shiatsu, and then they said, if I'd heard about Shiatsu first, I wouldn't have done the other stuff. Yeah. Had that from several people who've got diplomas in complementary or holistic therapies. If I'd known about this first, go straight to go. Yeah. That's my feeling, which is not, by the way, to denigrate at all aromatherapy, reflexology, and the other wonderful things that people do. Yeah. But I do feel that Shiatsu has got that it's got such a wonderful breadth to it, that we can do terribly gentle, off body work, or we can, walk upon people, I shan't tell you, I've been told I was a bulldozer in the past, it's like being walked. No. Yeah, that's just, it allows us. So there's a phrase that I say to my students, and I don't know if it's mine or somebody else's, but your Shiatsu is an expression of who you are. Your Shiatsu is an expression of who you are. And because who we are changes, and some days we're really yang and we're really into things, we can have, if it's appropriate on this client, we can use these really dynamic techniques, and on some days we're a little bit more, or we may be feeling quite dynamic, but we've got somebody whose ki is very, very fragile. So you're not going to press them into Australia. No, you're going to do very gentle and subtle things with them. And Shiatsu encompasses all of that. And to me, that's what makes it wonderful.
No, it is wonderful indeed. And I'm so grateful that you share how things have evolved throughout the year. And yes, you're right about that. Look at where we are today. And that's thanks to the determination that both yourself and Annie had along the way. So sharing my gratitude.
And other people too.
Of course. And other people as well. But I do want to mention the two of you, as you've been my first two guests so far. Hopefully I'll have the chance to interview more people as well, so we can find other perspectives.
Yes.
I'm conscious of your time, and I really appreciate all the wisdom that you shared with us. But I do not want to let you go until you tell me, what would you tell someone who's just starting on this journey? Because I'm sure we have people that would benefit so much from all the experiences that you've gathered throughout the year.
Yeah. Oh, well, this tunes in really well, because we started our foundation course this last weekend with a whole set of new people, some of whom, came with martial arts or healing or Reiki, and some came with absolutely nothing. And so what I would say to them is, listen to yourself, trust yourself, trust that intuition, and keep going. Find other people who are interested. Find a Shiatsu buddy. Find somebody who's, you can talk Shiatsu with, and share it together. I mean, and I'm trying to think if I had written anything else on my little answer, but no, just keep expanding. and trust yourself, because, this stuff is real. This stuff is absolutely, people go, oh, Shiatsu, it's just all that heebie-jeebie stuff. No, it's not. It's really, really real. And you trust yourself, and you keep expanding, keep listening out for other people who are calling you to say the same thing. Yeah. And just be part of the community and listen to your heart and your hara.
Listen to your heart and your heart. That's wonderful. Listen to yourself, trust yourself, keep at it, and expand your network and your community to find people who are on a similar path to yours, so it doesn't get lonely and it doesn't feel isolating as well. Elaine, I'm incredibly inspired and I'm incredibly grateful for everything that you shared with us. And before we stop the recording, I would like to invite if anyone would have any questions, being mindful of the fact that it is recorded. So if you prefer not to be on the recording, we can have the questions after that. And I'll give a few seconds. I can see the hands being put up in case you would like that, or the microphones unmuting. And if not, do not worry. You can leave your questions and your comments in the Facebook group after I post the recording. Okay? That's it. Kim, I can see you. Go ahead. Take the microphone.
Just a big thank you. I'm so glad I made the time in my life to come and listen to you, Elaine. So often we've been in working situations, and just hearing your story has been beautiful. And asking Antonia, will this recording be available for a number of people I've sort of spread the word to who said that they couldn't make it live?
Yeah.
I just would like to spread this recording for so many people at the beginning, middle, and end of their Shiatsu. Well, there's never an end to your Shiatsu life. Like you said, it's always there. There's no beginning or end. Oh, anyway, that's my little bit. Thank you both.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, the recording will be available. There will be a link made available onto the group. I will probably do it tomorrow morning because the video needs to render itself. But yes, if you want to share that, that would be amazing. Of course, we've had so many nuggets of wisdom, and I cannot wait to write about it as well. I am very excited. Before I stop the recording, I want to thank you all firstly for joining us live. And if you're catching the replay, thank you for your support. Please do let us know if you have any questions, any comments, if you would like to stay in touch along the way. I'm sure both Elaine and I will be more than happy to answer those questions. And a heartfelt thank you to you, Elaine, for allowing us to get access to your journey, to your key, to your energy, and everything that you shared with us. You would like to say goodbye to everyone before I stop?
Yeah. Well, goodbye. Au revoir. And all that. And yeah, thank you for listening to a few ramblings. And we will all meet again on some Shiatsu journey, I'm quite sure.